Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on the IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a great show planned for you today. But first, the forecast from our IntellectualRadio.com Weather Center. Today, clouds with periods of rain on and off, warm, high 39 degrees. Tonight, cloudy. Rain tapering off, warm, high 32 degrees. Tomorrow, partly sunny, warm, high 37 degrees. Tomorrow night, overcast skies as temps starts to drop like a rock. Frigid conditions, high 15 degrees. Wednesday, partly sunny. Cold wind chill will be a factor, so be on the lookout for that. High 26 degrees. Thursday, sunny skies, but don't let that sunshine fool you. Still cold, and look out for that wind chill advisory. High 24 degrees. Friday, pleasant conditions and a little bit warm. High 34 degrees. Saturday, cloudy and warm. High 40 degrees. Clouds again, warm. High 41 degrees. I'm willing to bet we'll see a 50 in our forecast real soon, probably in the next couple of weeks. The Drive at 5 is also part of the fabulous 5 at 5, only on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station. Here is the rest of our Monday night schedule. Starting at 10 a.m., Marcus Sky's radio show. 11 a.m., Becoming Dateable. 4 p.m., One Sister to Another. 6 p.m., Warriors Talk. 7 p.m., Talking with Tone. 9 p.m., Chronicles of Rom. Only on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station. Tonight, my guest is a candidate for judge in the second sub-circuit. Give a Drive at 5. Welcome to Chelsea R. Robinson. Welcome to the Drive.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeartRadio station your background.
My name is Chelsea R. Robinson, and I am running for judge in the Second Judicial Sub-Circuit. I have been an attorney for over 23 years. I do criminal and civil litigation. I'm also a volunteer in the Juvenile Detention Center, and I have done that for over 13 years. I have founded a foundation to help and mentor our juveniles, so when they leave the Juvenile Detention Center, they can become productive members of society. I also do the expungement seminars. I've been doing that also for over 13 years in pro bono work and helping citizens in my community, which includes the Roseland community, the 9th Ward, the 34th Ward, the 21st Ward. I'm also the attorney for a nationally syndicated television show.
You also do work for the Southside NAACP?
Yes, I'm also sorry about that. I'm also the chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee for the NAACP.
Yes. Why people in the second sub-circuit should select you for a judge instead of your opponent?
Well, first of all, my motto is from the community and for the community. Sometimes a lot of people that look like us are not for us, and they're not in the community. We don't see those people unless they're running for judge. I have been in the community for over 23 years, working in the community, fighting for justice for my community. And I believe that those are the things that you should look at. Also, we want judges on the bench who are experienced. I am very experienced, and I've been practicing law for 23 years. And I have a very diverse practice that would assist me in any area that I'm placed on the bench. I have done criminal law. I've done felony and misdemeanor trials. I've also done civil litigation, which includes breach of contract, family law issues. So I'm very diverse in my practice. Also, I am not afraid to do what's not popular. We want judges on the bench that stands for real justice, not people who are beholden to their own lives or their political ties, but people who are willing to go against the grain to make sure that our people have justice. When you go into the courtroom, you need to see people who not only look like us, but who are for our community and who people who are for justice for all.
You said something that's very interesting. You said we have judges that's sitting on the bench that looks like us, but not for us. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, a lot of times when we go before the bench, and I know sometimes when people look to vote for judges, especially in our African American communities. We don't know the judges. We don't know the name of the judges or haven't seen the judges. So we try to look for people that may have an African American name. But just because you have an African American name or you're African American doesn't mean that you've been working in the community for our people. So that means that even though sometimes I go as an attorney before a judge that may be African American, that doesn't always mean that I'm going to have an experienced judge up there, or fair judge up there, or compassionate judge up there. We want to make sure that our people get the same justice that they're having on the north side.
You have done work with felonies, with ex-felons. Can you at least elaborate? A lot of people, especially ex-felons, they say, I cannot vote. I cannot do this. I cannot do that. Or I'm still waiting for my record to be expunged. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, I've had the opportunity, and I started some 13, 14 years ago doing expungements, volunteer as a volunteer attorney with the Cook County Clerk of Court with Dorothy Brown some many years ago. And I've expanded that to do that also with my church. Now, with expungements, a lot of times people don't understand there is a difference between having something expunged and having something sealed. In most cases, if you actually have a conviction, even if it's a misdemeanor conviction, that's not something that can be expunged, but it's probably something that can be sealed. And now in Illinois, most cases can be sealed. The difference between expunged and sealed is when your record is expunged, it's erased, and the clerk's office erases it, and then the police department, the Illinois State Police, destroys the records, and no one can ever go back to look it up to see if you apply for a job. Then that job would not be able to go to the clerk's office to look up your record. Sealed means that it's sealed off from a particular group of people. So most public and most jobs cannot look your background up to see what's going on. But when you have something sealed, there's certain types of employers that will be able to look and see your background. So that's the difference between expungement and sealed. And a lot of times our community will go years and years and years, and they qualify for either expungement or sealing, but nobody's telling them how or telling them what to do. So I also work with TRED, which is also in the Roseland community, and I do expungements, free expungement with a group of attorneys there.
Can you give us an example? Because there's a lot of confusion with expungement and sealed records. What is the process? Let's say I'm an ex-felon. I want to get what are the first steps? I want to get my records either sealed or expunged. What are the first steps to get it sealed? Because there are some people been waiting for years, and then they're saying there are court fees in that process. So can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So the first thing, if I'm an ex-felon, let's say I was convicted of possession of a stolen vehicle. So, and I was convicted of that back in 1989. So it's been many, many years ago. So because I was convicted, maybe I received probation, maybe I had a jail sentence, because there's an actual conviction, I'm not eligible to get that expunged, but I will be eligible to get it sealed. So as far as getting your record sealed, you normally have to wait a period of time before you're eligible to get it sealed.
What is that period of time?
So the period of time, let's say in 1989, I was convicted of possession of a stolen vehicle. I pled guilty and I received 2 years probation. The period of time, number one, does not begin to run until my probation is over, after my sentence is over. Now, let's say I was convicted of other crimes after that. Then I have to wait till those sentences are over as well before I start my time to run. So let's say in this case, I've only been convicted of the one case of possession of a stolen vehicle, probation for 2 years. So that's 89, 90. That leads me to 91. So after 91, I have to wait 3 to 4 years after that, depending on what class the crime is, before I can apply to have it sealed. And what people don't realize, and that's why it's so important when you vote on these judges, is that it's not guaranteed. Just because you qualify doesn't mean that you would automatically get your case sealed or expunged. It is still in the discretion of the judge. So let's say I qualify, but let's say I had many other arrests on my record, but no convictions. So the state's attorney will have the opportunity to object. The police department, let's say if it was in the city of Chicago, will have the opportunity to object. The city's attorney would also have an opportunity to object. If there's an objection, then we'll have an opportunity to become to go before a hearing and before a judge, and the judge will listen to the evidence, look to see what you have done since that conviction, how your life has changed, what any other criminal record you may have, and may decide whether or not to grant the expungement or the sealing of your record. Unfortunately, I had a case where my client actually only had one conviction back in 1989, and this was not a Cook County case. However, because of his background, a lot of people know when you have a background and the police stop you, then it's more likely that they're going to charge you with something because they say, oh, this person did this in such and such a year or such and such a time. So he had numerous cases filed against him, but all of the cases were either it was dismissed, no probable cause, or finding of not guilty.
When the police look that up, does it show that it's dismissed, or is it just they just show the record? If let's say I'm police, I'm following Wanda, and I pull Wanda over, and she has a list of convictions, and well, it's gonna happen. She has. Okay, don't put it out there. Okay, she
Don't
got
put it in the atmosphere.
right. That's what she's shaking it.
Words have power. Words have power.
Okay. Let me use somebody else then. Okay, she said thank you. Okay, let's say Jimmy.
Okay.
Jimmy or John Doe
Okay.
have a list of convictions. I'm following Jimmy. I'm a police officer. I have this long list of crimes. Does it show on the police screen the case has been dismissed, or does it just show the crime?
I have to be honest, I'm not sure what it shows, but I know they can definitely see what you've been charged with. I do believe, and again, I'm not sure of this, that they do know what the background of the case is, where if it was dismissed, if there was a conviction, because a lot of times they'll say, well, there's a conviction for X, Y, and Z, but I'm not sure exactly what comes up when they're doing a stop. But I know they can see if you've been arrested before. And for a lot of our African-American men, that could be, to me, it should not be. And I know all officers are not alike and not all officers are bad, but it sometimes leads to them getting more cases. And that particular case when I'm speaking of, this person, he just kept getting charges. But I would say he was not just say it, he was proven innocent in each case. And in this particular case, this particular judge, not in Cook County, will not grant his record expunged because of the multiple times he was arrested. And I felt like in that case, she was in fact punishing him for the police arresting him, even though all of those cases were either dismissed or a finding of not guilty, a finding of no probable cause. So why should he be held liable or punished because the police arrested him and didn't have cause? So again, why the voting of our judges is very important.
Define the meaning of a judge position for us.
So in Cook County, we have circuit court judges and associate judges. So our circuit court judges are elected in by the people of Cook County. And what our judges do is they are assigned to a certain courtroom. They hear matters that come before them, and they preside over cases. They can be the trier of fact, or they can preside over cases where we have jury trials, where 12 members of our peers will listen to the evidence and decide the matter. And in that case, the judge's role is to rule on issues of rule of evidence, whether or not to make sure the trial goes through smoothly, whether or not evidence can be submitted, whether or not, I know we've all heard of hearsay, whether or not it's hearsay, whether or not you can present this in evidence, to rule on objections that the prosecution or the defense attorney may have. So that's the role of the judge. And it's also the role of the judge to sentence the person if it's a criminal case or if it's a civil case, to determine the amount of liability. And as we know, circuit court judges, if you believe that there's been some error in law, you can appeal to appellate court. And appellate court is, and I have had the opportunity to argue before the Illinois appellate court and the Illinois Supreme Court and the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. So in those cases where we believe that there was error in judgment, or the judge did something in error, or something was allowed that shouldn't have been allowed, we had an opportunity to appeal. In one case, the appellate court. In that case, we were able to present why we think the judge's ruling was wrong, and we had an opportunity to present that evidence between in a panel of 3 different appellate court judges who heard our argument after we submitted written reasons or a brief as to why we believe that the decision should be overturned. And in that particular case, we were successful, and the case was remanded back to the trial court to correct whatever errors the appellate court found. And in that particular case, our whole case was dismissed because it wasn't a valid charge.
In the courts, they have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
When a court in the court system rule, we all think it is a judge.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's a court's opinion that found someone innocent or guilty instead of judgment. Can you tell us a little bit about the court's opinion that is not a judgment, however, an opinion? You talked about an appeal. What I mean by that is a lot of people think, and it goes to biblical, because
Mm-hmm.
some of the law
Mm-hmm.
is biblical. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't understand that.
Look, fornication is still on the books. So, but I mean, adultery, but those are crimes that we don't enforce, and they are biblical. But go right ahead.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like the judge, they don't judge. Only God can judge. It's biblical.
Right.
And it clearly states, in a court's opinion, I find you guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you define the difference of, like, or elaborate a little bit about the court's opinion? Because a lot of people, this is probably new to them.
Mm-hmm.
So can you?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, so you have a trier of fact. So you either can have a judge, in the case of a criminal case, you can have a judge of a jury or a jury. So when there's a judge, the judge is going to listen to the evidence. He's going to he or she will weigh the credibility of the witnesses that's presented at trial. And then based on his or her own view of the evidence, he or she will find you guilty or not guilty. And I think when you say it's the opinion, because you can have a different judge who can listen to the same evidence and find this person not credible or credible. So a lot of times people, depending on if you think a judge is going to be fair or compassionate or experienced, if we have an experienced or unexperienced judge, may choose a jury trial. Because in a jury trial, the prosecution in a criminal case not only has to convince one person that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but you have to convince 12 people. So 12 people have to be on the same page. So if you have one person that says, and we've had that in jury trials, all we need is one to say, you know what, something doesn't sit right to me. The state has not proven his or her case beyond a reasonable doubt. And in that case, you would have a mistrial. And that way, that person would not be found guilty. And because it's a mistrial, then the state will have an opportunity to put that case on again if the state so chooses to get a unanimous verdict. So that's the opinion. So when you say opinion, that's the opinion. Another opinion would be we have the court's opinion, like you said, in appellate courts. So once you have a case, and what if it's a civil case, whatever case side the plaintiff or the defendant decides to appeal to a higher court, the judge issues an opinion instead of, like, let's say, a ruling or a finding. And trial court, there's a finding. You define the person guilty or not guilty, find the person liable or not liable. In appellate court, they give us a whole opinion as to why, whether or not they believe mistakes were made in the lower court. Because what people don't understand, when you appeal a case, it doesn't give that appellate court the right to sit as if they were the trial court and to weigh the evidence and to say, well, if I was trying the case, I would have found you not guilty. They can only weigh in on if there were mistakes by the court. So, and a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's a second bite at the apple, but it's not. It's basically saying, well, this judge, or
to open that case back up.
This judge did not do what he was supposed to do, or this judge ruled outside the law. So the appellate court cannot sit in the stead of the trial court and weigh the evidence and say, well, I'm listening to the evidence, and that by reading these transcripts, I don't believe this person was credible. And a lot of people don't, understand that. They think if they appeal it, then it's like this appellate court, they're giving them a new trial, but they just can only consider whether or not there's been mistakes.
Innocent opinion. Mm-hmm. More and more judges is asking people who are going to trial to pay a jury tax. Now, please define what is a jury tax.
Okay.
And this is something, I don't know if this is something new or anything, but it's kind of like, where is this coming from? A jury tax. And is it taxed on when people ask, well, I want the judgment. I want a trial of my peers. And the judge says, fine, but you're going to pay for it.
Okay. No, the jury tax is not new. We actually had this question before in another forum, and some of my may disagree with my colleagues, but I remember when I tried my first jury trial some many years ago, and I was told, well, there's a jury tax. What the jury tax says is that if you decide to get, and not all judges, thank God, go by this, and we're getting more progressive with our judges, and that's why reason why I'm running for judge. But when a person decides to have a jury trial, then they will give you more time if you found guilty had you not had a jury trial. So that's the jury tax. So you tax as far as the amount of time you will receive if found guilty. So that scares a lot of people for not exercising their constitutional right to a jury trial, because they're afraid, number one, they don't think the judge is fair, or they think the judge already think that they're guilty. So they're afraid to exercise their right to trial or jury trial, and they're more likely to plea. Okay, if I plea and I'm looking at 6 to 30, then they'll reduce it and maybe I'll get 2 years. If I go to trial and I found guilty, they probably won't give me the minimum of 6. They'll probably give me along the line of 15 or 18 or 20 or something like that. So that's the jury tax. Some people say it's a myth. It doesn't happen. It is unspoken, but I believe that there have been judges who do tax you or tax your client and adding on more time because they requested a jury. I have never let that stop me. If I think we have a winnable case, and as far as whether or not you want a jury trial or a trial at all, that decision lies solely with the defendant. But I always give them the pros and cons of the case. And even if I think your case is weak, we're going to fight like all get up to make sure that you're found not guilty. So I never try to make people, I know I hear this a lot from my clients who've had other criminal matters, that the attorney just told them to plead guilty. And it's sad because as the case I mentioned before with the guy with one background, I think he pled in that, but that affected his whole life. And he was like 18. Now he's in his late 40s and he's still trying to clear his record. He's still being harassed by the police.
But here's the thing, and I know you can't say it, but right. I will say, let me say this. and you can just give a nod. Do you think legislation, Illinois law, has a role in this? Because in Philadelphia, they have this automatic. If your record is clean for 10 years, it's automatically wiped out. You don't even have to apply. That's a rule in Philadelphia. I looked this up.
Okay.
So do you think Illinois or someone in a judicial should basically say, you know what, maybe we should look into that?
What I would say is, you're right. That's a legislation issue. As a judge, we are.
You got to be
We got to
neutral.
follow. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got to be neutral, and we have to follow the law. But I thank God that the law does give us some judicial discretion, that we can find creative ways to make sure that true justice is being served.
Well, please give intellectual. We got to have you back to have more conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station where they can get in contact with you. What is your punch number and all that good stuff?
Well, again, my name is Chelsea R. Robinson, and I am running for judge in the 2nd Judicial Subcircuit. That includes the area of 83rd Street all the way down to the south suburbs, 187th, 94 to the east, and 57 to the west. You can always contact me on my website, which is www.electchelsea.com. You can also send me an email at electchelsea@gmail.com, and my punch number is 233. And I like to say, if you want the people to win, vote Chelsea R. Robinson. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed myself.
No problem.
Thank you.
Not too many people say that after the drive at 5. When we come back on the drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station, Executive Director, Hospitality Scholars Foundation, Nicole Copeland, will join us after this break.
Thank you.
And we're back on the drive at 5 on intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station. She is the Executive Director of Hospitality Scholars Foundation. Please give a drive at 5 welcome to Nicole Copeland. Welcome to the drive.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station your background.
So I have a background in culinary arts. I've worked as a culinary arts instructor for a number of years with After School Matters, and prior to being with Hospitality Scholars, I was the program coordinator for the Careers Through Culinary Arts program for 13 years. And when we parted ways, we decided that we were going to work specifically to help the students in Chicago that are in culinary and hospitality programs. And Hospitality Scholars was born less than a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been busy. We've been very
So
busy.
please describe your foundation to us and why people should support it.
So, Hospitality Scholars is really kind of born out of our passion for hospitality and culinary arts education. So, right now, we work in tandem with Chicago Public Schools and other school systems across the Chicagoland area. And what people should know is that there are right now 20 plus high schools across the city of Chicago that have culinary and hospitality management programs in them, with young Black and Brown students that are in these classrooms that are all looking to get real world education when it comes to culinary and hospitality, hands-on education, career opportunities, and scholarships to help them pay for college.
So how do they get access to it?
So students elect, as they do with most programs that are in Chicago Public Schools, they elect to participate. So it's self-selection. We just had our first culinary tasting competition about a week ago, and students had to prepare dishes based off of what was on a pantry table and a protein that they were all provided. And from that, those students will then advance to have the opportunity to compete for cash scholarships in April. So it's all students that are pushing themselves, motivating themselves to further their own career opportunities and education opportunities through culinary and hospitality.
Does the scholarship varies in the amounts, or
The scholarships will vary in amounts, and it's really based on what we raise in terms of cash dollars. But the idea is to give the senior that does the best in their culinary team the opportunity to win at least $10,000 in cash scholarships, and it's tiered down after that. But all of the students get to experience what it's like to A, be in a competition, and B, be in a real world sort of on the fly cooking opportunity, because when you're in a controlled space, you kind of get used to relying on teachers to guide you. Whereas in this instance, you are working on your own instincts and your own intuition to guide you through the kitchen. So you end up with a plan that becomes something else in reality than what you dreamt up. But it's often incredibly delicious and creative and more meaningful to the students.
so it's more like the baking wars that they have
It's
on
like
television?
Chopped. I hate saying things like that.
Why you hate to say something like that?
Oh, because
You love to say chop, don't you?
well, I hate to like put the reference of a television show in front of a student because they think that
But do you think it's helpful, not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
do you think it's helpful to let them know this is what you're up against?
I think it's representative of what they do that day and what they do throughout the process of competition. I don't like giving the representation of what they do on television because many of them are professionals and it's all pretty, and it takes away the kind of real frustration that you might have when you go to reach for a green onion and there's no green onions there. Like your brain doesn't tell you what to do. So you just have to keep pushing on. So the representation of the television competitions, I don't like, but I do love the premise of telling kids that it is a competition and that you do have to cook your heart out.
That's it. That's
That's
all the
it. I mean,
information.
ultimately, you gotta cook with some passion, because if it doesn't taste good, then what are you doing? It has to taste good. It has to look good, and it pushes them to keep going, which is what we all want them to do ultimately.
True. There is always a market
Mm-hmm.
for people in the hospitality industry. Why few institutions don't provide scholarships such as yours to students who wants to study it or show interest in the hospitality industry?
They do. I think I would say that a lot of high school counselors, I don't really think that they think of hospitality in the bigger sense of what it actually really is.
Can
You know what I mean?
elaborate a little
Mhm.
bit on that?
I think for a lot of people, when you say culinary arts or you say hospitality management, for them, you really think about people checking you in at the front desk of a hotel or the chef that's making your food in a restaurant. And that's just one piece of hospitality. Hospitality is a million different things that you don't even really think about. From the time that you walk into a hospital until the time that you leave, someone has thought about your experience from the time that you enter that door to the time that you get into your to your hospital room and then you leave. There's a whole process of hospitality behind that. When you get on an airplane, there's a whole process of hospitality. So I think we think about it in very narrow ways. And unfortunately, that's kind of dictated the education that we give to students in in high schools about what opportunities kind of await them when they graduate with going to study hospitality management or culinary arts. And it's not until they get to culinary school or hospitality management school or university where they actually see, no, there's so many more avenues and career options available to you. And so really it's, part of what I love to do, what we love to do as hospitality scholars is really kind of re-educate people on what hospitality and culinary arts really is.
I mean, how you re-educate them? Do you do hands-on
exposure?
Yeah.
Exposure. Getting other people from other parts of our industry to come in. So if it's, taking students to go see a research and development kitchen, we all like Triscuits. I like a Cheez-It, right? You might like a Cheez-It. You might like a Triscuit.
Oh, I love a Cheez-It right
okay.
now.
So like
these cookies not helping.
Those cookies are not helping, right? But so those recipes are pastry chef's Allison's recipes, right? But if she just got them out of a box, you don't know the process by which it took to get that product in a box. Somebody has to go through all the research and all the development to figure out what makes that recipe unique and different from another recipe. And that is a whole facet of science and culinary arts that you don't really even think about. It just kind of happens. You see a new flavor of brownie or a new flavor of Cheez-It on the shelf. Well, somebody has to test that. And somebody has to make sure it's delicious. And there's a whole process and science behind it. And those are, again, little nuances that you don't know unless you have the exposure to the industry to help you see that.
So in your taste buds.
In my taste buds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a number of pieces, but yeah, your taste buds are one of them. I remember when we went to craft a number of years ago. I took students out to craft, and this was right as white cheddar Cheez-Its became like a thing. And they were there as a research and development item, and you're tasting them, and you're like, these are delicious. But they had varying stages and flavors of white cheddar that they were testing to figure out which ones they wanted in the box. And ultimately what you get on the shelf is what they decided to put in the box. But that was all taste buds and science and what packaged well, what tasted well to other people. So there's a number of steps, but in terms of culinary arts, when you say that, again, you just think about the chef. You don't think about the other processes and the other careers.
You have a week of activities going on.
We do.
You should have your eyes just rolled right there. So explain to us the week of activities that you have going on there.
So we're super excited to not only be one of the only minority-run nonprofits that's specifically work with young people in hospitality and culinary arts. But we've partnered with another one, Causing a Stir. And Chef Ken Polk of Batter and Berries had this idea a few months ago. His birthday is on Thursday, and he normally does something kind of, fun and, really personal for his birthday. And this year he said, I want to do something for the foundation. But more specifically, I want to do something that honors this concept of legacy. And so we mulled around for a few weeks. What does legacy mean to you as related to culinary arts? Is it the mentor that helped you? Is it the chef that taught you how to, julienne or chop properly? What does legacy mean to you? And we fleshed that idea out and came up with this week-long partnership with Causing a Stir to kind of highlight African-American chefs during Black History Month, and that sort of hands-on realism of legacy and journey from being a student to being a professional and giving back to your community. So we have tomorrow, it's Hospitality 101, and that's going to be at the Bronzeville Incubator. And it's really an opportunity for people that aren't in culinary arts or hospitality to come and talk to myself and Alexis, the executive director of Causing a Stir, and just to learn a little bit more about the hospitality industry and what a career looks like or what it could look like, and to do some networking. And then Thursday night, we're having a party at City Point Loft. It is a birthday fundraiser for Chef Polk. So if you've ever been to Batter and Berries, you know that the French toast is pretty dang delicious. But then you also know that they have a whole plethora of other dishes on the menu that he's had his hand in. Some might be served there, but then there's going to be others that have worked with Chef Polk there to celebrate him and honor causing a stir in hospitality scholars as a fundraiser. And then Saturday night is our big legacy gala, and that's going to be at the Ignite Glass Studio. Tickets are $100. And it includes all of your food and beverage. But it's a really night of celebrating legacy. We're honoring Dr. Brian Hill, who's, helped countless thousands of people across the city of Chicago get certified in their food handlers and managers licenses. Miss Lynn House, she is the Heaven Hill brand ambassador and educator. She works nationally really to help spread the word about Heaven Hill and mixology. She's an African-American woman. She's pretty amazing, if you ask me. And then you have John
I thought you
Meyer.
said she's pretty.
No, she's pretty amazing.
Okay. When you said she was pretty, I said, I want to meet her.
She's pretty amazing.
No,
She's
I'm
pretty
just-
and amazing. And then you have John Meyer, who went to Washburn Culinary Institute like me, but he's the owner of BJ's Market, and there's several of them across the city. He was the owner and chef of the Retreat, which was apparently really big in Chicago. And he's been giving back to young people since he's graduated from culinary school. So we have an amazing night of mentors and mentees and legacy. And it would be great if people wanted to come and celebrate that with us.
You are encouraging minorities
Mm-hmm.
to apply for the scholarship in hopes to provide them with an opportunity and to learn in the hospitality industry. Tell us a little bit about that, because it's kind of like the percentage or something in hospitality among African Americans are down, or
It's what I say it's down. I would say I wouldn't say that it's down. I would say though that there's not enough of us in positions of notoriety. You only perception is reality, right? So if you only see one particular kind of chef on television, that's what you assume that most chefs look like. So, for me, until you see more representation of women, African American women specifically, and African American male chefs, kind of hold places of executive chef positions, I pretty much won't be happy. But I think there's a lot of young, really good cooks working in the industry right now that are African American, male and female, that are doing amazing things with food. I think, again, it's just a matter of making sure that those doors are open, that we're opening them for ourselves, but that we are also, making strides in the industry to not just pigeonhole ourselves in places and spaces that are safe and comfortable, but pushing ourselves to be in larger spaces to work with larger populations of people.
why they're not highlighted more, these African American chefs? Usually it's kind of like we do have food shows, but you don't see a creation of an African American owned, like operated with an African American host and an African American chefs competing against each other, or something like that, to say, you know what, we finally got something. And it's kind of like there's a stigma, and just hear me out, that we only eat soul food, and that's the only thing we're about. We're about the collard greens, pickled pig feet, and that's the only thing we're about. But there's a growing trend of African Americans who's eating vegan.
Yeah, no, that's huge these days.
And I'm like, why we're not, having these, like the BETs, or the TV ones, just highlighting African American chefs. And you're saying they're out there, but a lot of people don't know they're out there.
I think that I think representation is incredibly important, and I think being able to highlight your brand and your food, and letting your brand and your food kind of be your calling card. And I think until we, you can either wait for the door to open for you, or you can kick the door open and open the door yourself. And I don't think that there's enough chefs maybe not interested in doing that, or maybe they're waiting for someone to discover them to find them. I don't know why there's not more chefs on TV One and BET. I don't know that they feel like there's a market for it on those networks, but there's definitely, no, I completely agree that there is definitely a market to talk about, what we don't normally consider traditional African-American food and all of the other sort of things that are happening in the food world, not just, on Food Network, but it's a trickle down theory. All of those things happen to us as well. You and I know many African-American vegans and vegetarians. They're doing amazing things with food. There are people that are, eating keto and whatever. They're all African-American also. So I think it's just a matter of them finding the right market to get their message across.
So we got some treats. This aroma is like, wow. So could you tell us a little bit about this?
I could. So those are Allison's brownie cookies. They are chocolate. It's chocolate with nuts in them. Oh boy. Everything Allison makes is delicious. You are going to love these. So these are chocolate cookies with pecans and chocolate chips. These are little mini cupcakes and a little pastry with walnuts in them. And she baked them fresh, and she is going to be participating in the Black History Month events that we have coming up. She'll be doing a pastry table for both evenings. So there's more than enough opportunity to taste really delicious food from African-American chefs across the city of Chicago, both pastry and savory.
Hand me those cookies back.
I will give you the cookies.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
So while you describing,
yes, have a cookie.
Yeah,
they
I
are
am.
good.
Tell us how to get in contact with you, your foundation, and also how people can apply for the scholarship while I eat this cookie.
So all of the information about Hospitality Scholars can be found online at hospitalityscholars.org. You can Google it. Hospitality Scholars is the first thing that pops up, and everything related to Black History Month is listed there for you to purchase tickets if you're interested. Our contact information, my contact information is listed on the website, as well as scholarship information and future events that we'll be hosting around the city.
I was hoping you would say more so I can get another bite. Allison, these are great.
I'm so happy you enjoyed
them. Yeah. Well, these are going home with me. Sorry, Wanda. That's going to do it for us on the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com. Don't be a stranger to us. And the flyer and information will go to our sister Facebook page, Black Products and Services Facebook page, so you can advertise, and also the Black events as well. It's for free.
Wonderful.
Give Wanda a hand. That's Wanda and Earl Winfrey. So thanks to Wanda, our executive producer today, Earl, who's behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Man, these cookies.